If you're a business owner or a business leader, you're running a company and you're listening to this and you think finance is for the birds or for the nerds, I'm going to share with you some very important stats and some messages that may change your mind. All right, so here's the deal. These are the types of companies that I work with. I work with businesses that have an accountant or a bookkeeper, or maybe they have a small accounting team. And they're getting their financial statements. Maybe they're on time, maybe they're not on time, maybe they're accurate, maybe they're not accurate, but nonetheless, they're getting some type of financial statement. But here's the number one thing that I hear from people that I work with. They say, Steve, the reason why we like working with you and Coltivar is because you guys have a unique ability to combine strategy and finance together. And that's what I'm talking about in today's episode is how do you connect your mission and your money? And that's why I believe finance is not for the birds or for the nerds. In fact, if you don't know how to read these financial statements, then you're going to make a ton of mistakes and leave a lot of money on the table. Now, you can rely on your accountant, but oftentimes accountants will just say, yeah, you have a problem with your profitability, reduce your cost, or go grow your revenue. But you need somebody who's going to say, yeah, go grow your revenue. Here's a channel that you could pursue. Here's your lifetime value to customer acquisition ratio, your LTV to CAC. It's 3, it should be 5.2. I know this because I work in the space and I understand the metrics. Or somebody who could say, yeah, if you invest over here and you reduce your working capital, you're gonna drive $1.2 million to the bottom line. Whatever it may be, like understanding the story and then being able to do something about it by combining strategies is where the money's at, all right? That's how you're gonna increase value in business. All right, so I just wanna share a few stats with you in this episode about why I think strategy is not for the nerds or the birds. Did you know 82% of business failures are due to poor cash flow? 82%. In fact, I have this other stat that I say all the time. You're probably sick of it if you hear my other content, but I wanna drive this home into your head. 70% of companies that go bankrupt are profitable when they close their doors. All right, so we have 82% of companies, they fail because of poor cash flow. And then we have 70% of companies that are failing, they actually have profits. So what the heck's going on? Leaders are so focused oftentimes on the income statement. They look at revenue, their cost of goods sold, their gross profit. Yay, thumbs up, we have this gross profit. Then they account for their overhead. Wow, look at it, we have all this profit left over. But what they don't account for is changes in working capital and CapEx, or capital expenditures for short. But when you account for these things, you get to free cash flow. And I've worked with so many businesses, and when I'm looking at their financials, like, okay, you may have $250,000 in profit for a month, but your free cash flow is actually 50 grand. That's a major difference. So maybe you're listening to this and you're nodding your head, you're like, yeah, Steve, yeah. Because I'm looking at my financials and I have profit, but then we're tapping into our line of credit to cover payroll. If this is you, like, I get you, right? I've been there before myself, and I've seen a lot of other companies struggle with this. Here's the other deal with cash flow. And this is why finance isn't for the nerds. Because if you can't build out a forecast and you don't understand your numbers, you can grow yourself out of business. I was talking to a builder just the other day, and I said, look, how's business going? He's like, oh, it's great. We're picking up all these projects. Our projects are getting so much bigger. And I was like, that's great. Just be careful. Because if you don't structure your terms right, or if you don't watch your cash flow, you may get caught with your metaphorical pants down, right? I've been there before where we were growing so fast, a lot of our money was tied up in working capital. We weren't managing our accounts receivable and just our working capital overall. Our inventory was increasing. So we had a lot of cash tied into the business, and we almost ran out of capacity on our line of credit. So this is what I'm referring to is like, profit is just one part of the business. It's all about free cash flow. And 82% of business failures are due to poor cash flow. And I would add on to this, they're due to people not understanding the story behind the numbers and how to read the income statement, the balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. Why do you think I'm so passionate about this stuff? I love this stuff. All right, here's another thing. A QuickBooks survey found that 60% of small business owners felt that they lacked the financial skills to effectively run a business. Maybe this is you. When I first started out, I was 16 years old. I launched my first company as a landscape business from my sister's garage. I grew it into a multi-million-dollar business in my early 20s. I had no clue how to read financial statements. All right, so you're not alone. If you're feeling this right now, hey, no shame. I've been there. Join the club. But I did something about it. So you can hire somebody, right? Maybe learning finance isn't for you, you can hire somebody to do this. But you have to make sure that they're strategically minded, okay? Sure, you want somebody to do all the transactional stuff correctly, but going back to my first point, you need somebody to say, hey, look, here's our return on invested capital. It's not even covering our cost of capital. In order to improve it, we need to change our prices. And if we change our prices, it's going to result in this churn. But we're also going to pick up this much margin, so it's going to cover that churn by 3.2 times. So therefore, I think we should increase prices by 15%. I'm just making this up. But this is the type of dialogue that needs to be coming from somebody who's overseeing your financial operations. So no wonder why 60% of leaders don't feel competent. And for the 40% who do feel competent, I can tell you the majority of them are overconfident in their skills and they're making a ton of mistakes. So don't feel bad about this. No shame, no harm, no foul. It's just something to be aware of, that business owners need to partner with people who understand the story behind the numbers. Also, people who could do the transactions, but more importantly, the strategically minded people that can run a business from a strategy and finance perspective. All right, here's the last thing that I'm going to share with you and explain why strategy and finance, especially finance, is not for the birds. All right, there are 340,000 fewer accountants today versus 5 years ago. This is just in the United States, 340,000 fewer accountants, all right? And the number of people taking the CPA exam is the lowest since 2006. Wow. Red flags. Moving forward into the future, and even right now, when I talk to business owners, they're like, we can't find really good accounting help. In fact, I'm working with a business. We hired somebody in financial operations. They're not doing super well. And I'm like, what the heck? Why is it so hard to find people who are really skilled? At Coltivar, I just hired somebody who's helping out with financial operations. He's amazing. He's awesome, right? He has the skills. And more importantly, it's not about the skills. It's just he has the desire to learn and he has the humility to ask questions. So this is a major gap coming our way. So if you struggle with FinOps, just know that it's going to get worse. I don't mean to scare you, but I just think this is an incredible opportunity. Maybe you're a business owner or a leader and you're listening to this, you're like, I want to educate myself on finance. That's great. We have a lot of programs. We have free stuff, a free app you can get at byfiq.com. So you can do that for free just to get started. There's no gimmicks, no hook. Just go, take the assessment, download the app, just start for free. So that's one way you could do it. Now, you may be thinking, I don't have time for finance, or numbers aren't for me. I'm not a numbers person. I was never good at math. I don't have time. You could come up with all the excuses in the world. Maybe the excuses are legitimate. Maybe you have the money, you just want to hire somebody. I just want to drive home the point that finance is so critical. I can tell you the companies that do well are those who have strong financial leaders and they have a certain level of financial competence at all levels of the organization. Doesn't mean your HR director or your sales manager need to be fluent in doing debits and credits. I'm just talking about a basic level of financial literacy. A few years back, I went out to a company and I did an all-day course called Boosting Your Financial IQ, and I taught all the leaders how to read an income statement, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. And it's super valuable. Now going back to the business to this day, they talk nerdy to me. It gets me all excited. They're like, oh, Steve, check out our throughput. Check out our gross margin, our free cash flow, our working capital's down. I'm like, okay, you're getting me a little excited. Tone it down a little bit. But that's just one example of how organizations can teach financial literacy at all different levels of the organization. And when you have this competency, this capability in your organization, you're going to know exactly where to focus and what value drivers to pull in order to maximize value. Nothing's worse than working with a company that does $10 million a year in revenue and they have $10 million a year in expenses, all right? They're making zero. And even if you think you have accounting profit because you're looking at your income statement, remember you have to account for the cost of your working capital and your CapEx, which isn't even showing up on your income statement, because this is going to tell you the real story. It's about free cash flow, all right? So that's what I wanted to point out today. It's not for the nerds. You shouldn't undervalue your FinOps department. If you're a business leader, go buy them some snacks and bring them some breakfast burritos or donuts, whatever you do. Just show them some appreciation, because I can tell you it's so much work to get financial reports and forecasting right. So I'm sure your team is working really hard. Give them some credit and just don't discount the financial operations of your business, because when it's good, it's easy to take it for granted. When it's bad, you'll know it's bad, trust me, really quickly. And just don't forget about the upside. You could be earning $3 million today, but you could also have the potential of earning $15 million today just by pulling a few levers. That's what I do. I go into companies and I teach them which levers to pull, and I help them to implement strategies to drive better results. And it's just usually a few things to tweak, and it drives tremendous value. All right, that's all I have for you. If you want to connect with me, you can check me out at coltivar.com. And in the meantime, take care of yourself. Cheers.